That's right. So what I did was put together a cross section of many of my operations, and literally from A to Z. And I had things that were pretty detailed, and I put together a binder. It was very detailed, not pretty. It was very detailed, and I was able to present that to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in a top secret setting in the SCIF. All of them had clearances. And
how did they respond to that, Wayne?
well, understand that when I gave it to them, I was not there hat in hand asking them to intervene in my case. I truly was not. I was there for protection so that if anything happened to me, and I come from a very, very dark world,
Yeah.
things happen,
Yeah.
that they were aware of these things that were going on. And I must tell you, it opened some eyes. And the comments that were made were, some of them were shocking because I was kind of surprised that they didn't understand that these things take place. But here was the proof. And I gave them my jump records, my training records, all of my training facilities. I gave them checks on how I got paid. There was no doubt about where I came from and what I did. I gave them copies of all the corporations that I used as front companies for the decades that I was there. And I had no choice. And again, I'm not there for them to intervene. It's very difficult for them to do that anyway. Most people don't realize that. They think they can just pick the phone up and say, hey, no. The only one who could have done that and intervened, and we couldn't understand why he didn't, was John Brennan. And then, of course, fast forward,
Yeah.
we find out that the only man who could have saved me and should have saved me, as they've done many, many times in my past, where someone intervened and saved me, John Brennan was part of Hillary Clinton's inner circle, a part of her cabal, who was part of me being destroyed.
And he was probably the guy who wanted you on the spit the most.
Well, second to Hillary, I would suspect.
Right. Yeah, photo finish there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just it was so incestuous, and continued to be all the way from Eric Holder to Loretta Lynch, because everyone was involved. Everyone knew what was happening to me. And while we're on that topic, I think it's important, very important for your listeners and your guests to understand that on the morning that I was sentenced, when I had been urged to plead guilty to 2 charges that I was not guilty of, but I was told I would face 20 to 40 years if I didn't, they dropped the charge. The morning that I'm being sentenced, the charge against me of not being CIA contractor was dropped.
This from General McInerney and General Vallely's article. Wayne Simmons provided the government with no less than 12 attorneys, high-ranking U.S. government officials, flag officers from the military, and other credible witnesses who could have appeared before the sentencing court and proven that such an unorthodox covert operations existed within the United States intelligence community. A former Department of Justice attorney with the above top secret clearance level of Cosmic and Q, and one of the few men ever allowed by the CIA to audit CIA black programs, provided an affidavit stating that he was aware of the controlled access programs that Wayne Simmons had actually participated in.
Yeah, it was a pretty remarkable thing.
But they didn't want those witnesses. They didn't.
No,
Judge Ellis, now, did he ever say, oh, this is
No.
interesting. They're charging this guy with this. And there are all these people lined up saying, yeah, hey, he's the real deal and he's involved. Did Judge Ellis ever let those people speak?
No, not only did he not let them speak, which was not really his fault because he wasn't asked to let them speak by my attorney, his friend, William Cummings.
Who was setting you up from the inside.
Who set me up from the inside,
Which is the
as my attorney.
same business model as we saw with General Flynn. with his initial attorneys until Sidney Powell walked in.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
as
right.
you said, and this is what General McInerney and Vallely say, without reason, the fake news media failed to report, as you confirmed, Wayne, that on the morning Wayne Simmons was to be sentenced to by U.S. District Judge T.S. Ellis, the judge, the principal charge against Wayne Simmons of falsifying his CIA contractor bona fides was, as you stated, dismissed by the government that morning on the day of sentencing.
That's right.
So
That's
then
right.
Wayne, everybody's saying, okay, so Wayne was able to walk out of the courtroom a free man. That didn't happen, did it, Wayne?
No, they were going to make sure that that didn't happen. So that morning, that's also the morning, Dave, that a new charge, a brand new charge, shows up at sentencing of felon in possession of a firearm. They know that I'm not a felon. They know that they dropped the charges against me being a felon. In other words, Judge Ellis accepted my version that I was not a felon. Okay, you're not a felon. And turned around and sentenced me to 33 months in prison for being a felon in possession of a firearm, knowing that I wasn't a felon. Now, people are going to say that's impossible. It happened. You can see it in my legal documents on Pacer. These are all filed documents. The transcripts are there. So imagine what I'm telling your listeners. The judge, T.S. Ellis, accepts my plea that I am not a felon and then sentences me to being a felon in possession of firearms. And not only that, it's so continuously egregious because the FBI went to secure facilities to get my records from my undercover work. And in the past, over all of those decades, there were times when I was in gun battles, for example, and I was arrested. And I was setting up major operations for guns for drugs operations. And I was arrested. But I was immediately able to walk away.
Because you were working undercover.
Well, yeah, but we have to, that's exactly right. But we had our special way to do it. Right. And so that nobody got the wiser. It just looked like a really, really professional attorney and so on and so on. But they went to the warehouse, they grabbed these records, and then they released them to the public. After they had been, there is no record on my file. When you went to pull my records, there were no ever. So the government, the FBI, made sure to get those records and release them as if I was the criminal.
Now, your attorney, who obviously was a friend of the judge, who was a friend of the deep state, who was there on the inside to make sure that you ended up in prison, Wayne, was there any talk about, wait a minute, I'm being charged as a felon, I'm not a felon, I'm getting hit on this firearms charge, let's appeal this.
Yeah. So,
what happened with this appeals thing?
Well, there are two things that happened. One is it was really obvious to me then that Ellis, that of what was happening.
Yeah.
Cummings made it very clear to me in writing, and I have it, where he wrote me a note to be quiet. This is at the table in sentencing.
This is your attorney. Your attorney, Cummings.
My attorney, William Cummings,
writes you a
Judge
note.
Ellis's friend.
Yeah. What does he say?
And he writes on the paper, if you are not quiet, Judge Ellis will sentence you to 20 years right now. So I have that. And so I came into the courtroom that morning expecting to get no jail time and then to come out of the courtroom and, since I now had my bona fides back, work on the other fake charges of the federal charge, which were easy, when in fact, I'm now facing 33 months in prison. Now, here's where Judge Ellis continues to make you think that he's a good guy. He allows me to stay out of going to jail, this is in middle of July, until September 20th.
Of which year?
Of 2016.
Okay.
And that was because I asked him to do that because I had my first grandson being born. So he was gracious enough, we thought, because he was gracious, to do that, when in fact, that's what he does. He makes you think that he's being fair, when in not, he's really, as you said, hitting you with the hammer. He's got the hammer down. So there would be no appeal with Cummings. And I was able to retain Ray Mansalillo now, and his investigators from the MPM group in New Jersey, who are some of the best there are. And so over the course of the 25 months that I was in prison, Ray Mansalillo and the MPM group were able to secure the documents, and of course the new emails being released by President Trump's groups and by Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, who is just a stalwart in helping to defend all of us. We were able to put together these incredible appeals. Judge Ellis refused to even hear them. They were summarily dismissed, to the point where we sent another appeal to the Fourth Circuit in Richmond.
Mm-hmm. And what happened there?
Not only did they dismiss it 3-zip, they refused to hear it. They refused to hear it. It's stamped on the appeal. This is not where they read it, consider it, and reject it. They refused to hear it. So this was the good old boys, Judge Ellis's guys, going down to the Fourth Circuit, his buddies, and so there were no more appeals for me.
When did you go to prison, Wayne?
In September of 2016.
And how many months did you serve?
25 months in Schuylkill, Pennsylvania.
How difficult was that?
Well, it's a prison camp. Of course, you go through regular prisons at times. The difficult part about being in prison is that you're in prison.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's a camp or a prison, I assure you, it is not all of the luxury that some people think prison camps are. So you're in prison, and in my case, of course, I was now locked away, and it was very, very difficult to communicate and to do much. Fortunately, Ray Mansalillo and the MPM group were just unbelievable. And of course, I must tell you, it got to the point, thank God, it got to the point where when I talked to my children on the phone once or twice a week, they said, "Dad, we hate to tell you this, but the longer you're in prison, the more stuff comes out and exonerates you." Mm-hmm. And it was true. It was true.
And in fact, Wayne, while you were in prison, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, in 2017, you received an anonymous certified letter.
That's correct.
And that letter, and tell me if I'm wrong, contained copies of altered legal documents that were used against you. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is exactly what happened. There are two major events that should have ended this for me early on. One was I received an anonymous tape recording from folks that are sympathetic to what was going on with me. And in that tape, that audio tape, it is between Bill Cummings and I, and Bill Cummings is admitting everything that you and I now know to be true, and that I should not have gotten any jail time, that I was innocent. He makes very disparaging comments about the judge and about Paul Nathanson, the prosecutor, and Dana Bente. And that's one. So I was pleased that people were trying to help me. The next major piece was, of course, as you said, while I was in prison. Mm-hmm. And you have to go pick up a certified letter. It's anonymous. It's from the Eastern District of Virginia, and it's a whistleblower. And inside were two documents showing the forgeries that had taken place between my attorney, William Cummings, and the Eastern District of Virginia. So they were forging and altering documents that they were using to file officially in my case. That did not help me. And Cummings would sign those after they were written by the Eastern District of Virginia.
Now, could your attorneys who were legit at this point, Wayne, at that point taken that evidence and tried to bring it to a judge, or was it already too late for that because you had exhausted your appeals at the Fourth Circuit?
Oh, no, it's never too late.
Okay.
You think. In my case, of course, we immediately took the tape and the forgeries and filed motions, which Ellis refused to hear.
So he refused to hear it, but could you have taken it anywhere else or no?
Yes, we did. We went down to the Fourth Circuit as well.
And they said, we don't want it. We don't want to hear it either.
We don't want to hear it either. I was summarily dismissed at every turn. And it's one thing if people read things and discuss things and then rule. These, we don't want to hear about it. We don't want to see it. It's summarily dismissed. It doesn't exist. If I had sent them a blank piece of paper, they would have dismissed the blank piece of paper.
Wayne, you had legit attorneys at this point. What did they say about? Had they ever seen something like this before, or was this like, oh, we've seen this before? You know.
No, in fact, and again, Ray Mansalillo, if your listeners want to find, he is truly one of the most remarkable guys out there, and he's a former DEA, and then became an attorney, and he's just the best you can get, in my opinion. And we had exhausted once we saw what was happening, there was no place else for us to go. You can't keep going to the appeals court and having your stuff summarily dismissed and stamped. They stamped it that this case will not be published. It's on my legal documents. So they just dismissed it, and they just after 25 months I got out, and then the only thing we could do then was just begin to rehab what had happened to me, and we've got a great book written. And I must tell you, David, if you'll allow me just 1 second here, my children they're grown, they're adults, they're 40 and 37, and I will tell you, they reminded me much. They reacted much like the Trump children, where they stood beside their father and just were just incredible young people. And that being said, that goes a long way while you're in, knowing that you've got that support, but you still know that there's a part where people are going to question what is going on. Why is this happening to my father? So it was a very, very unique situation to be in, and it's important to rehab your reputation for lots of reasons, but one is for your children and my grandchildren, of which I have 4, and for my friends, like you, like General McInerney, like General Vallely. These folks, and the late Ace Lyons was one of my stalwart, and he, as you know, is a colorful man. He was the Navy's Patton. He was the Navy's George Patton.
Yeah, he was.
And he supported me, and I was able to share documents with the generals that I could not share with anybody else.
Right.
For lots of the obvious reasons. So they saw early on what was going on.
Well, one of the things, didn't they also see, Wayne, we saw this with Carter Page, with documents being manipulated. We saw this with General Flynn with 302 forms. When the FBI interviews somebody, they fill out 302 forms.
Yes.
General Flynn's original 302 form, as I've outlined repeatedly, is, quote, missing, and we all know what that means. It's not missing. But then there are 4 versions of which were edited, and it appears were edited by Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe. Wayne, in what they did to you, again, you were, I think, the test case for them, or at least one of them. Did they manipulate 302 forms on you?
Absolutely. That is one of their key techniques to manipulate the evidence. For example, and again, it's important for me to stress, this is all part of the legal record. This is what I'm saying. They interviewed an attorney that I knew from years ago. On his 302 form, when I got his 302 form, it was horrible for me. He said things that I could not believe anybody would say, unless it was your worst enemy. Now, the government obviously thought that I could not find this gentleman because I hadn't talked to him or he had changed states or whatever. I was able to find him. And when I read it, sent it down to him and read it to him, he then turned around, and he's an attorney, after he really said some expletives deleted about what had happened to him in his interview, and he sent an affidavit up denying every single thing line by line. When it got to Judge Ellis dismissed it as inconsequential. And that's just one example. There are many others in my case where they write the 302s, and you can see whoever wrote the 302s, they used it. Let me quickly say this too. They actually found 2 criminals that I had worked against on major smuggling rings, and interviewed the bad guys about me and submitted those 302s to Judge Ellis.
Oh, and those weren't inconsequential for him, were they?
No.
No.
Those are the ones that he gave.
Oh,
and again, forgive me for being redundant. This is all in the legal record. So when you read it, you can't help but a reasonable person would say, wow, this is just terrible.
And to compound matters, Wayne, when all this hit, your wife had recently passed right before that, correct?
Yeah, she died from stage 4 breast cancer about 16 months before that, before all of this started. So it was a trying time. It was tough. I'd been married 36 years, had been with my wife for 40. So it was a pretty difficult time. But it's we all have crosses to bear. We all have things that we have to get through, and I was very, very thankful that I had my faith, number one, and the support of my family to get through it. So
and Wayne, while in prison, did you ever feel that you were in the process of being targeted?
No. But when I say no, trust me when I tell you that was foremost in my mind. Had Hillary Clinton won the election, now I had only been I went in September 20th. Had Hillary Clinton won 6 weeks later, I assure you, my prison stay would have been different. President Trump won, and everything changed. Everything changed.
I think,
and of course, me being a Trump supporter all those years did not help me either. So I had everything working against me.
Well, I truly believe, Wayne, that if Hillary Clinton had won, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, both on your end and my end.
Well, that's probably very, very true, Dave.
I believe that to be the case.
You can only thank God she didn't. So,
Wayne, when you look back at this entire situation, when those 2 FBI agents came to your house and everything that transpired after that, is there anything in retrospect you look at and you go, I wish I would have done it this way rather than this way, and I think it would have saved me potentially some grief?
I used to, the old word cogitate on it. And I gave it a lot of thought. for example, had I absolutely refused to let them in the house, would it have changed anything? And the reality, Dave, is sadly, nothing I did would have changed anything because this was a case of pure corruption and collusion. And the target was already on me, and all they were going to do was go with the flow. Whatever it took for them to take me down, they were going to do it. And I don't know if I made it easier for them. I like to think I didn't, but they sure made it easy for themselves by stacking the deck.
Wayne, do you still feel you're a marked person because of what you know as it relates to players, including the Clintons?
Perhaps. But there are things that I know, like many men and women out there. There are things that I know that took place that I would never, ever divulge. I love this nation so much. My family goes back to 1647, direct descendants. We are Americans. We've been here before it was the United States of America. There is virtually my family all the way back that has not served in some capacity, in some skirmish. And I would never do anything to harm this nation, ever. Now,
and after everything you've gone through, Wayne, if someone came to you from the government and asked you if you would serve the country again, your answer would be what?
I never stopped serving my country.
That's true.
I never stopped serving my country, not ever. And I will say something else. President Trump inspires men like me and our young men and women serving, and virtually so many other Americans, which is why he was elected. He inspires us to continue to do those great things, risky things. And everybody has their own way to serve to make this nation better. Some of us just decide that, show us what it is. If it's risky, we'll still do it. If it protects America, if it protects Americans, then it's got my name on it. That's not being a hero. That's what we do. Men and women do that every day. The men and women that run in and out of buildings that are on fire. So yeah, I've never stopped serving my country, nor would I. And I will tell you, if this president asked me to do something, that's a foregone conclusion.
Wayne, it's very difficult once you've been incarcerated to pick yourself up and make your life whole again. What have you done? Because I know you have, and you have beyond picked yourself up. You have continued to serve our country. Educate our listeners in your time after prison.
Well, it was actually, Dave, during prison. First of all, I'm not a quitter. Never have been, nor is my family. So this was an adversity that showed up, had to be dealt with. We would deal with it, and I did. And while I was in prison, I filed some patents with the United States Patent and Trademark Office through my attorneys that I just happened to think of while I was in, to go with a patent that I had already been issued on internet security and for banking. And lo and behold, those patents that I filed from prison were immediately flagged by the United States Patent and Trademark Office as being something that they need to hold very close to the vest, because they sent us a letter, the attorneys, immediately saying we can't allow anyone to see these because they will be detrimental to national security. So once I was released from prison, of course, some very, very big companies want those patents. And of course, the regular list of who's who in the government, all of the alphabet companies want to know about it. So as I told the generals, I found myself in the really unique position of being pursued now by the same folks that didn't help me. Now they want to know about this technology that makes the internet impregnable. So things are going very, very well, and we can just hope that they continue to go that way. And if I can help guys and gals like me, I'm there, that got hurt legally or that have other issues. I'm there. Men like me, we're there. We want to help folks. We want to do this thing and protect these guys and gals that have given it all.
Wayne, how can folks follow your efforts? Because I know folks want to do that.
Well, we're going to reopen my website, WayneSimmons.us. It is not up yet, but it was an old website that is still active. Only now we have good things to put back on it, and so we will continue to get that. We hope that'll be open in the month, and we'll continue to put the legal documents up so that they can follow that part of my life, and they can see the new nonfiction book when it comes out, and the movie, by the way. So there are lots of really good things, and that's not for personal gain necessarily, but rather the personal gain side of my reputation.
We get it.
And we want to make that happen and let folks know that what they're seeing on television is real. This is scary. This is what guys do. It's one thing for us to do it against another country. It's another to do it against your own citizens.
Wayne, last question. Do you believe the perpetrators in the deep state, the let's call them the middle level puppets, because there are a lot higher level puppets that have yet to be pushed out into the sunlight. But do you believe the middle level puppets such as John Brennan, James Clapper, Comey, Strzok, Page, Clinton's, Obama, do you believe they will ever be held accountable?
Accountability is a strange kind of phenomenon. Accountability, as you know, can come in many, many different packages.
Correct.
I truly believe, and this is not being optimistic, it's a statement of truth, that each and every one of them, of those folks that have been part of this deep state against the president, against me, against General Flynn, whoever, it's coming. It will come in different packages. Some will be more severe than others, but I promise you, I was around and I've been around too long. It's on its way. It's on its way, and when it's delivered, they will know it.
And so will the public.
And so will the public. Absolutely.
Wayne, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You are an incredible patriot who has made an enormous difference and will continue to make enormous difference in this future of this country for your children and your grandchildren and for every American, and I thank you.
My pleasure, Dave. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you folks for joining us today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail.